Hi guys, welcome back to Amalgamated Moi. In this video, I will be going through an alternate history where the Confederate States win the American Civil War, and the immediate aftermath that follows. Just to note, before we get into this, I do not support slavery, and the perspective given in this video is simply an interesting thought experiment on what variables could have played out differently, and how they could have affected the outcome of the American Civil War. That said, let's jump into it. First, I think it's important to outline what a Confederate victory means. Does it mean that the South simply secedes and stays an independent nation? Or perhaps the North is pushed to just New England? Or does slavery stay within American society and no new nation is formed? Or does the Union collapse and the Confederacy become the new United States? For the purpose of this video, the answer to this is at the very least, slavery stays in the South, but the ideal outcome for the Confederacy is independence and the hopeful spread of slavery into the North. The first point is one I've seen covered many times, but I think was an important factor to the South's loss in our timeline: the lack of infrastructure, specifically rail lines and telegraph infrastructure. In our timeline, at the start of the Civil War, the South had 20,000 less miles of rail line and 40,000 less miles of telegraph lines, comparatively to the North. A majority of this rail line was civilian rail as well, not military or cargo transport lines. William Thomas says in his book, The Iron Way, Railroads, the Civil War, and the Making of Modern America, that 3/4 of American rail lines had been constructed in the 1850s. In this new timeline, the South builds more rail lines and telegraph communication in the 1850s, unlike in our timeline. And now, when the war breaks out, communication and resource transport will be much easier, and resources can be transported faster, giving the Confederacy a more equal standing to the infrastructure of the North. Now to the 1860 presidential election. Southern Democratic candidate John C. Breckinridge has the ability to win the election. However, Southern voters are forced to choose between Breckinridge and John Bell, and Democratic voters must choose between Breckinridge and Stephen A. Douglas. This gives Republican Abraham Lincoln an advantage, with Southern and Democratic voters split between three candidates. In this new timeline, Douglas and Bell drop out of the presidential election, and Northern Democratic representatives support Breckinridge, moving some Northern states to vote against Lincoln, allowing Breckinridge to win Missouri, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Maryland, Delaware, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, giving Breckinridge a majority of electoral votes, bringing a Southerner to the White House. This may in turn end up causing the Civil War to never occur, due to the absence of unrest in the South, due to Lincoln never being elected. This therefore meets the victory requirements for the South due to the keeping of the institution of slavery and the possible spread into the northern states that were influenced to vote for Breckinridge. However, this ending to the Civil War is a bit boring. So let's say that Abraham Lincoln wins the next presidential election in 1864, creating unrest in the South similarly to in our timeline. However, the Breckinridge presidency would have already broken the loyalty the border states felt to the North, making them more likely to join the Confederacy, causing conflicts like the Bleeding Kansas affair to move toward Confederate favor, increasing the size and influence of the South. Now that the CSA is an independent nation, they will still send an envoy to the United Kingdom and France, leading to what was in our timeline, the Trent Affair. The Union will still board the British ship the Trent, intercepting the Confederate envoy. However, the Confederates use this unjust boarding of a British vessel to bring the British and French into the war. In the best case scenario for the South, British Canada is dragged into the war, opening a second front in the North, causing troops that could have been utilized to attack Virginia or help capture the Mississippi to be moved to the American-Canadian border, weakening the Union Army. The British would be in a position to break the Union's blockades on the South, allowing the Confederacy to continue trade with Europe, helping the British and French economies, which in turn helps them continue their support of the Confederacy. French troops would be utilized to assist Lieutenant General Pemberton in the siege of Vicksburg and the western front of the Civil War. In this timeline, French soldiers would come and attack General Grant and the Army of Tennessee, allowing Vicksburg to be resupplied through the previously mentioned rail lines, and the Confederacy to keep charge of the Mississippi. In the surprise attack by the French, General Grant could be killed, depriving the Union of a major general. This loss would allow the French and Confederate forces to move up the Mississippi, reclaiming it and taking states like Iowa and Minnesota. This victory would allow more Confederate forces to focus on Virginia and succeed in the assault on Culp's Hill and East Cemetery Hill. Gettysburg remains the turning point in the Civil War, however with the opposite outcome than in our timeline. With a new stronghold in southern Pennsylvania, Philadelphia is the next target for the Confederates to attack. After capturing Philadelphia, the Confederates would be able to force the Union to surrender due to the loss of major cities and the fact that Washington, D.C. is surrounded by Confederate states. The peace still allows for the total succession of the CSA, and even the annexation of Iowa, D.C., New Mexico, Arizona, and southern Colorado, and would likely give the British control of what would become Montana, Idaho, and Washington. The Union's new capital would be moved to Boston due to its distant location from the new Confederate-American border, as a precaution in the case of another Confederate-American war. A side note here, the Alaska Purchase has occurred and it was instead sold to Mexico to establish friendly relations between Russia and Mexico due to both nations' fear of growing British power in North America. Now that the Civil War has ended, and a Confederate victory is clear, Speaker of the House Schuyler Colfax becomes the new President of the United States in the 1868 election, replacing Andrew Johnson, who became President after Abraham Lincoln's assassination, due to the fact that General Grant was killed in the Siege of Vicksburg. The Confederate victory also causes the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to never be ratified, due to the looming threat of the Confederacy, altering American history in an unimaginable way. The ripple effect from that would have led to a completely different country from what we have today, especially in the matter of equal rights. In the South, slavery may never be abolished, or, at the very least, equal rights would not yet exist, or would have been greatly delayed. In the North, though the country most likely would have moved toward equal rights, it would have been slowed down greatly due to Southern influences. So here's the final map of North America in 1868. Anyway, that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed doing the research for this. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, ring the bell for notifications, leave a comment down below if you would like to see another video like this and what alternate history you would like me to cover. I'll see you guys next time. Au revoir!